Hello everyone, welcome to another Starcraft 2 replay. This one's going to take place on Shattered Temple. My Protoss opponent today is Rabid Seagull, spawning in the 3 o'clock position. And in the 9 o'clock is myself, Ketroc, the Red Terran. And Rabid Seagull is a high diamond Protoss. So yeah, we're going to be doing my typical one base play versus Protoss here. However, seems the Protoss like to do one gate fast expand to counter it, and what I've been doing is just getting more racks and hitting without metavacs earlier, and that sometimes works and sometimes I got stomped. So I found a way to around this. I read it in a post and it makes a whole lot of sense. Saw a video on it and it's a good counter to the one racks expand, and it's very easy to implement. So, seems like Protoss one counter to my build is counterable in itself. So just building my first supply depot and barracks. No reason to wall off, so I just build it closer to home. It's a little more economical. I can leave my SCVs mining for a little bit longer. This is a neat little trick I like to do. Build this first barracks right up against the command center, as long as it won't block your add-on. And that way when it moves around, it kind of makes it hard for the probe to get at it, especially if your SCV moves like over here, then it's impossible for the probe to get at it. Anything to prevent that probe harass is okay by me. Taking my gas. Normally what I like to do is build my orbital on 17, that way I can get in my next barracks immediately after the first one. But I decided to change the order here. I'm going to cancel this SCV and get an OC, just because I think maybe I can shoot him out of my base before I show him my next barracks, but then I'm like, well, I should really be building it now, so I scrapped that idea. I don't know if it's worth it, like losing maybe like one Marine worth of production just to keep him in the dark a little bit more. Looks like he's going to take my assimilator, which is absolutely fine by me. I don't need that assimilator at all, so good riddance. And sending out this first SCV to scout. I already got the one kill on his probe, now I want to kill him. Looks like he scouted cross map first, so since he arrived really quickly, I assumed he would go close position first, and since there is no close position Shattered Temple, I thought that'd be like close air position. But he didn't, so his scouting pattern kind of made me assume he was in the wrong base. So once this Marine finds out that he's not here, I know that he'll definitely be located cross map, and I think it's too late to go in and try to get a probe kill, as his stalker should be popping out any moment now. Yeah. So had I been in his base right now with a cropper base, I could probably get a probe kill. But since I can't do that, we're going to send this Marine back home after I just tap the tower. Meanwhile, my reinforcements, I got them queued up on the assimilator, and then to this point here. And a nice little trick is this rally point will actually autocorrect itself. Once this assimilator is dead, it'll turn into a 1-point rally straight to the ramp. So after scouting with your first Marine, the next scout or tap you want to do is with your first Marauder, because that way you get to hit before the 6-minute mark, usually. And then if he doesn't have Warp Gate tech done, you can do a little bit of damage. And then if he's doing the 1-gate expo, you can actually do quite a bit of damage. So you can see the rally point just auto-correct itself, now go straight to the ramp, and now I'm going to be moving out with my first Marauder. Now, the adjustment to this build you gotta do is pull an SCV with you. One SCV, that's the only cost of this, and if he's 1-gate expoing, you're going to be in really, really good shape. Another thing I like to do is keep another SCV hotkeyed at home, say on 2. I forgot to do it this match, but that way if he 1-gates expo, I can immediately pull a second SCV over, which is kind of helpful as well. Also, I went concussive shell before stim. I mean, even if I go stim first, it doesn't arrive in time for like Void Rays or 4 gates, but I mean, delaying even more I guess is kind of dumb, but I love this concussive shell for this push. And if here I scout the 1-gate expo, so what I do is I throw down a bunker. I see this Zell making a beeline for my SCV, so I try to save the SCV. It's kind of important to keep it alive. Unfortunately, the SCV was already damaged, so he was able to kill it. And this is why you want to pull a second SCV immediately, just in case of a scenario like this. If you lose your first SCV, you can get another one out here to repair. Had he had the money for it, he could warp in 3 units right now and maybe push me back. But I am queuing up all my reinforcements here as well. So taking down the Expo and getting this bunker up, so even if he had a larger force, if this bunker completes, then it should be more than enough to hold him off. I didn't exactly wall it off correctly. I can still slip in here. That's alright, I have no interest going up this ramp. Notice my bunker placement in range of the Nexus, but also just that kind of that money position away from the ramp. I want to like have all my bunkers be able to fire right to the bottom of the ramp here. So keep them as far back as possible, but still force them into this choke. You don't want to right up against the wall, obviously, because then you can whale you from the high ground, and with Colossus out, it's even going to become more of a problem. So I can transition this into a containment. And from there, it's basically GG. The only thing I would warn you against is you can often, it becomes very tempting to say, look, I got bunkers on his low ground, I got him on one base, why don't I take my expansion? And I think that it's a huge mistake if you do that. Because basically the only way you can get back into this is to do something to really hurt you. If we stay one base on one base, I'm still ahead because, you know, the Protoss economic advantage is chrono boosting probes, but on one base it doesn't matter. Once you're fully saturated, more probes won't do anything. Or my economic advantage of mules actually gives me extra mining, because they can mine the same time as an SCV, so I'm actually bringing in more money than him. So I'm already ahead economically, I don't need the Expo, and I think that's important because there's lots of things Protoss can do to get out of this, because this actually makes you really vulnerable, having a containment. That means your entire army is at his front line and you have nothing defending your main. So I'll just pause here and just throw a couple scenarios, like had he tech towards DTs, all of a sudden he can warp in DTs down here, run them in my base, and all of a sudden I got no units here and he's smashing my SCVs. And I got to pull my SCVs and it cuts my mining. Or he could get a warp prism, come over here, warp in 4 zealots and start smashing all this stuff. And then if I send back my army to kill his zealots, then he comes pouring down my ramp and kills all this. Or he could build a warp prism and start warping in the low ground here and ferrying his troops to the low ground, and then just come smash my front line with his entire army, leaving like 2 or 3 sentries behind to keep me from doing a counterattack. Which means I have to pull my entire army back since it's against his entire army. And by the time I clean up his entire army, I'll have lost half my base, maybe a handful of SCVs. During that time, he can warp in more units here, so when I leave the containment, he can come down the ramp, smash my empty bunkers, and take his Expo. Like, all these things are really dangerous. And the best way to deal with it all is to dedicate all your money to dealing with it all, which means building as many units as possible from these 2 racks to keep them from like smashing out the containment. Teching the starport immediately, so in case he does fast Colossus tech to get out, you can have the Vikings out to counteract that. And then just getting some good scouting around. I had one Marine kind of like search around for proxy pylon, which can be a problem. I got another Marine, you know, patrolling this area to see if he warps on the low ground. Maybe you can build a sensor tower up here to see, so you can see if any warp prism escapes. And then I got an engineering base. What I'm going to do is build a missile turret in the low ground here and leave a small contingent of forces here. Just kind of get myself in a safe position, and then only then should you even think about expanding. And you really still don't have to expand. I mean, you're still ahead economically, and if you mine out this base, like say you get down to like 4 patches, just float your orbital over here, then you can continue mining at a higher capacity. You'll still be ahead of them. And that's kind of a really important concept to know. Like, it's something like Zerg players often have to deal with. Like, they'll take 4 bases and have 70 drones, and then Terran will do like a 14-minute push and trash them. And then they'll look at the replay and say, wow, Terran was only on 2 bases with 40 SCVs. Well, then you can make the adjustment. How maybe I'll only go 3 bases. Maybe I'll only get 55 drones. That way I'll be strong enough to defend the push, and I'll still be a little bit ahead. Instead of being like gigantically ahead, I'll still be a little ahead. So it makes me safe and still have the advantage, rather than being unsafe and having a gigantic advantage. So it'll just like either be an easy win or a terrible loss. It's the same concept here. You don't want to like overcommit to expanding and then have him able to easily break out or harass you. So here he attempts to break, and with stim and medevacs and bunkers, this bust out is not going to work at all. Also important to throw a scan on his base. Since he's on one base, you know where all his tech structures are in here, so there's a good chance you'll see what he's up to. That's what I did. I scanned him with my reactor starport. I built a Viking and a medevac, and then I was able to scan. Had I detected that he was going Colossus, I would have kept pumping Vikings. But since I saw that wasn't the case, I just kept going medevacs. I also used my factory to kind of like poke up to the top of his ramp just to check out his composition. And yeah, that's the way I deal with the one gate fast expand. I faced it 3 times now, and I've trashed it the same way all 3 times. It works quite well. This is actually the only time they've taken out my SCV, so kudos to him for that. Although he had a little fewer units, usually they put up a little bit more of a fight, but honestly, if you get that bunker complete, there's basically no way they can save his Nexus, because the one gate into Nexus, it means you're probably going to have double the army when you show up, and he can only clean you up with his once he finishes warp gate tech and warps in a couple waves of units, and hopefully you'll have your bunker done by then. And if you do, then the Nexus goes down. So again, to review, pretty simple build. I mean, you build your first barracks, you make 1 marine, and then you get your orbital and second barracks right afterwards. You build a reactor on your first racks, a tech lab on your second racks. That actually allows you to go 2 racks before your second supply depot. And then you scout with your first marine, and then you push out with your first marauder, and you pull an SCV with this push. If he's gone for this greedy build, you throw down the bunker, and you take out the expo and you contain him. Had he not gone for this greedy build, well, I'm still showing up before warp gate tech, so maybe you can kind of poke in, see if you can snipe a sentry or 2. If he only has like 3 units, maybe you can kill a lot more. If he has more, then you can kind of like just judgment call, see if you can snipe something, if not, retreat. Obviously it's a little more difficult to retreat since stalkers are faster than your units, so you may have to commit to the fight and lose everything, but as long as you hit before warp gate tech is done, or at least before he's got 2 rounds of warp-ins, you should at least draw even on this fight, and pulling one SCV doesn't really hurt your economy. I mean, at this point I'm pretty well saturated. And obviously if he hasn't done this 1 gate fast expand, that means you're going to be in really good shape for your 9-minute push with medevacs and that 1 ghost. And now just thinking about it now, maybe get that 1 ghost laid anyways. I mean, a ghost is costly since you're building a ghost academy just to go out 1 ghost. So that means the ghost is basically costing you $350, $150, maybe $400, $150, considering the SCV you have to pull off the line for a while. So that's a costly tech investment just for 1 ghost, but in this containment situation, man, you can just like EMP here. Just wait till he goes for the the bust, and then just EMP here, and you're guaranteed to have a gigantic cluster of units get hit with it. Yeah, so I'm feeling really good. The 1 counter Protoss has to my build, I seem to have a counter to that now. So Protoss is once again in very rough shape, and I expect to go back to winning 90% TvP. Anyways, with that, we'll call at the end of this video, and check the description for a thumbs up link.